All right, good afternoon, and welcome to Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase. This is your weekly call-in town hall and radio show. I'll be on the air for the next hour to answer your questions. So feel free to give us a call here. The number here in the studio is 804-454-1366. That's 804-454-1366. And I'm actually here each Friday. And you are welcome to tune in and listen in. You can call in. Definitely love to get your thoughts. We've got a lot to talk about today. I don't know about you, but I have been glued to the TV screen with these Senate hearings because I know that people want to know, because I am a female state legislator, what I think about these hearings. And so I am prepared to discuss that today. And so there you go. So we'll be talking about that a little bit. I also want to talk about all this going on with the redistricting that's going on with the Virginia House GOP. They have come up with a map, and they voted on it. They looked at it yesterday. They voted on it. We're going to talk about that. I also was able to, I've gone to a number of different events, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about those, but I met one particular individual who specializes in financial education of our young folks. So we're going to talk a little bit about the legislation that was passed a while ago by Democrats. Interestingly enough, it was a Democrat bill and received bipartisan support that would require our middle and high school students to have financial literacy training as a class in their public schools. And so I've got her coming on today. We're going to talk a little bit about that bill since it's been in place. So we're going to talk about that. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, I'm State Senator Amanda Chase. I'm your weekly radio show host, and I serve you at the state level, not to be confused with the federal level, which is what's going on with these U.S. Senate hearings. And I'm at the state level, not the federal level. So I've been watching from my home in Richmond, what's going on in D.C. with this whole Senate hearing and the circus that it has become. Watch that a lot today as well. So anyway, so be ready to comment on that. I'm still in my first term in office. I'm getting ready to complete my last and final official session before I run for office next year. I represent the 11th Senatorial District, which includes all of Amelia, all of Colonial Heights, and most of Chesterfield. I am a Christian, conservative, Republican, and in that order. And some people say, well, why are you telling us that? I believe in transparency. And so that's what I ran on. I want you to know my worldview, where I'm coming from. I represent my entire district, and you can ask anyone who's contacted my office. I am available, I am accessible, and willing to meet with anyone who is willing to discuss issues. And I did run on term limiting career politicians. As many of you know, I am not a career politician. My husband and I are small business owners and have been for the past 26 years since we've been married. We were married 26 years ago. I'm all about returning the government back to the people. And my goal is to be a representative who is transparent, accessible, and approachable. And no, I'm not paid to do this show. I do it because I think it's important to stay connected to the people that I serve. And so that's my goal. So if you have an issue, call me today, 804-454-1366. I'm here for you. I'll be on for the next hour. If you want to call my office, you can actually do a Google search, Senator Amanda Chase, and you can contact my office, and I'm happy to meet with you. But we are going to go ahead. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I've been up to this week. I tell you, a lot of people think that legislators only work 3 months of the year when we're in session, but that is not true. In fact, as a prime example, I can't remember the last days I didn't work 7 days. I can't remember the last time I had a day off. I'm always in the community. I was at Chesterfest this past Saturday, and it was so good to see so many folks from around the district, seeing you in person at the GOP booth, standing there with our Republican nominee, John Childrey, who is running for Commonwealth's attorney. We were standing at the polls for a good part of the day, not the polls, at Chesterfest here in Chester, Virginia. And it's passing out water and just meeting and greeting folks that came up to our booth. Try to do that every year. And then that evening, I joined many of you all at NASCAR here at Richmond Raceway. Had a really good time, and one of my favorite drivers, Kyle Busch, who's driving the Toyota M&M car, won. So I was really excited about that. He won last time I went to NASCAR, so that was kind of fun. But so Sunday, I met with many of you who attend Gilgrove Baptist Church. They had their 175th anniversary. That is a long time. I think about the church I belong to, and they've been around maybe 20, 30 years. 175 years, that's a long time. So congratulations to Gilgrove, who is out in the deep part of Chesterfield, and Pastor John Brothers and his son, John Mark Brothers. They did a great job and had so many folks coming that had been a part of that church for so many years. And I just really appreciate being invited. And Board of Supervisors, Steve Ellswick and I were there. And it was great to be a part of that. So I have been asked to be on a women's right to vote task force. And we met this past Monday. It's our second meeting. And I was actually voted to be the vice chair of this committee. And Delegate Kathy Byron is the chairman. Now, as many of you all know, back on August the 18th of 1920, the 19th Amendment granted women the right to vote. And I'm all excited about that, right? Because I'm a woman and I want to vote. But I think it's, and I think it's great. So we're going to be celebrating the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote, and I will be on that committee, that task force that is organizing that. We're working with the Virginia Historical Society. I've got a whole task force, Republicans, Democrats, constituents. We had our first real big meeting this past week, and so you'll be hearing more about that, but that's coming up next year. And then on Tuesday, I met with the Republican chapter of the Credit Union's Legislative Appreciation, which is pretty neat. So a lot of you all who are working for credit unions, many of you all know I came from the banking industry, and very interested in preserving and helping our credit unions to succeed. And in fact, later you're going to hear from an employee of one of the credit unions here in town, and we're going to be talking about financial literacy. That same afternoon, I went to the Bird Theater with John Pugner, who, as many of you all may remember, helped Congressman Dave Bratt win his first campaign ever whenever he defeated my other former boss, Congressman Eric Cantor. And so basically what's happened is we are looking to make sure that when people vote, that their vote counts. And when people donate, that their money counts. And, unfortunately, what we've seen in the past is we've seen a lot of outside money come into Virginia politics and play a huge role. If you remember correctly, with Senator Sturdivant's race just 3 years ago, we saw Bloomberg's money come down to Virginia, millions of dollars. You look at the Spanberger race and how much money is coming from all over the U.S., but not Virginians. And it upsets me. And I remember being upset about it my first year that I was in office. And so I filed a bill that basically would prohibit any outside money coming into Virginia to try to influence our elections. I think it should be Virginians determining who gets elected because, I just think it makes sense. I think it makes sense. So I introduced some legislation my first year in office, and I remember the attorneys that helped me draft it, and they said, Senator Chase, this is unconstitutional what you're trying to do, because it has been deemed by the courts that anytime you give money, that's considered a First Amendment right to free speech. To which I replied, then we need to challenge it. We need to challenge that ruling because it is not right. If I live in Virginia, I cannot vote in North Carolina's primaries or California's primaries. But you're saying that I can donate money and basically influence an election. To me, it's totally not right, and we need to fix it. And so this year I've had a couple of organizations that have come to me that have worked across the United States to correct this issue. And so I'm going to be introducing legislation. It's actually going to be a constitutional amendment to the state constitution that would basically say that money that is given cannot be accepted from outside of the Virginia, and that it's not unconstitutional. And so you all are going to get to vote on that. And we'll talk more about that. We're going to go to a break real quick. We've got a great show for you today. So I hope you'll tune in. Stay tuned with more Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase. All right, welcome back to Cut to the Chase with State Senator Amanda Chase. This is your weekly call-in town hall and radio show, so feel free to give us a call. Here at the studio, the number is 804-454-1366, 804-454-1366. The next segment, I want to talk about a law that we passed many years ago. Now, this was before I was in office, but as a result of this law, student in Virginia's class of 2015 are the first in the state to graduate under a mandate that they take a full credit of personal finance and economics. Okay, so my comment is here, no, I do not like mandates. I would not have voted for a mandate. But I do think it is important that our kids, when they graduate from high school, that part of their curriculum should include personal finance and economics. A lot of kids may not even know what a checkbook is. They may not need one anymore, given that we're kind of a cashless society right now. And if you have kids, you're cashless, period, right? I have 4 and I know all about that. So they were the first test group for the 2009 law that made the standalone class a graduation requirement. And Virginia is just one of a few states that require students to take standalone classes in financial literacy and economics. And I believe Tennessee is the other one. So Virginia's law was passed in 2009 amid deep concern about the economy. So students, if you had a student who entered the 9th grade in 2011, they were the first who were required to complete the course in personal finance and economic literacy in order to graduate. So it's now a requirement. The state allows students to take the courses during the summer or online if they choose, although some districts charge students a fee to do so. And my son decided to take a class over the summer, and yes, we got to pay for that. The Virginia Council on Economic Education says the majority of students still opt for the regular classroom session. And so the hope is that 90,000 students will have this sort of knowledge, and it's going to basically, hopefully, improve Virginia's economy. I will tell you that I wish that there was a lot more financial literacy just among our constituents, just the whole concept of break-even points and what a profit is, because I think it would help us out. And someone that's going to help us here, and someone that I mentioned earlier today, is Tia Grizzle, and she is the financial literacy coordinator with Fort Lee Credit Union. And I actually saw her earlier this week at an event. And Tia, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on our radio town hall today. And I know that you are as the financial literacy coordinator. Financial literacy is what you do for a living, and we're just going to talk a little bit. Tell us about your role. What does a financial literacy coordinator do?
Yes. First, I want to thank you again for allowing me to come out and talk about financial literacy. And what I do at the credit union that I work for, Fort Lee Federal Credit Union, I go out to the community, I go into schools, I go into churches, different organizations, and I try to spread the importance of financial literacy. I know for some people, when they hear financial literacy, they're unsure as to what that is. And financial literacy is going to be teaching people and giving them the knowledge and skills to manage their own personal finances so that they can become financially independent and become confident when it's their turn to, use their money and to, spend, save, and budget and things of that nature, that they'll know what to do with their finances when the time comes.
And there is a real need for that because I think I remember studying this in the 8th grade. Now, that's been a long time. We won't say just how long ago that's been, but I do remember my social studies teacher teaching us how to balance a checkbook. But now there is a law that requires our students, in order to graduate, they have to have financial literacy. But we have whole generations of people that have never had this class. And, especially with the technology, technology has come a long way, with the online banking. And maybe tell us what kinds of things that you teach.
Yeah, so for me, when I go into the classrooms, I try to supplement and, be there as an assistant and a guide and a resource for teachers. Because as you said, this is a new requirement. And so this is almost a new field for a couple of teachers to learn personal finance and economics. So I do research, I go into the classrooms, and I try to provide activities that's going to be on a real life scale for students to understand it. So when it's time for them to graduate from high school, they'll understand, okay, if I budget correctly, this is the outcome. If I don't budget correctly, this is the adverse outcome of that. I also go into teaching about credit and helping teachers come up with curriculum as well. One of the things that I love doing when I go out to the high school are our financial simulations. And with that, that's where we give the students an occupation. Some of them have financial obligations, and they have to figure out how they're going to budget for a whole month, paying for childcare, trying to afford their debts, saving money, paying for utilities in their homes. And so that real life experience is going to help gain their confidence and gain their knowledge when they go out into the real world and have to handle their own personal finances.
So I think most of us, probably my generation, probably learned about personal finance by playing one of two games, Life and Monopoly.
Yes.
Is that true or is that true? I do have a degree in finance, so I did get a little bit more as I went to Virginia Tech, graduated from Virginia Tech. But
Yes.
it is part of to be a functioning, responsible person, especially if you have kids, the importance of how to handle money, buying a home that's within your budget, or leasing an apartment that's within your budget. And how many people are out there that buy things on credit that they can't afford? And
Yes.
what do you see as the biggest challenge out there as you're teaching in these classes? Tell me about some of the challenges that you see that you're just surprised about.
Yes. One of the things that surprises me is some students or some of our youth are looking at credit as it being a part of their checking account. They assume that if they're swiping their cards or if they're doing automatic payments, that this is coming out of their checking or savings account, where in actuality, this is money that they're borrowing. And there's a little bit of a disconnect of there is interest tied to this that you have to pay back. So yes, you're buying now, you're paying later, but you're paying later not to yourself, but to whoever you're borrowing that money from. So I try to hone in the importance of saving, and especially when you start saving young. I'll go into classrooms and I'll ask the students, what is your financial goal? And, I'll hear, I want to live in a mansion. I want the fastest car. And they don't think it's attainable. And they think, okay, well, I'll just get a credit card and I can, pay for my home. I'll get a loan and pay for my home. But that's only part of the battle. If they actually just take the time and start saving young, compounding interest, which is interest on top of interest, is going to kick into effect for them. So when they get to the point of graduating from high school, they'll have money to put towards college. When they graduate from college, they'll have money to put towards their homes, put towards their vehicles without having to borrow as much money or possibly not even have to borrow at all. And it also sets them for the long run. Because when I talk to them about their financial goals, again, they're talking about the cars, they're talking about their homes, but they're also missing that retirement aspect, that you're going to be the sole person that's responsible for your finances. And you have to look at it in the short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals.
Well, I love it because I actually, my husband and I are in the financial services industry. I'm on hold until I finish my term in the Senate,
Hmm.
but we teach financial literacy classes. And there is a slide that we show that shows compounding interest, and it's a great
Yeah.
visual. And if you've never seen a visual of compounding interest to our listeners, it's really amazing. Um, how much money you can let your money work for you, just the effect of compounding interest. And people are amazed at how many millions of dollars they can have if they put aside just a certain amount at a certain interest rate. It comes back, and you can end up with a nice nest egg. But we're so busy spending. We'll be right
Yes.
back, Tia. Tia's going to come on for another segment. We're going to continue talking about financial literacy, and you can give us a call. We'll be right back with more Cut to the Chase. All right, welcome back to Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase. And I have Tia Grizzle, who is the Financial Literacy Coordinator with the Fort Lee Credit Union. And by the way, congratulations, Tia, because your credit union won first place for the Credit Union National Association's Youth Desjardins Award in your asset size category. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
And if our listeners are saying, what can I possibly learn? I want to educate myself more and become more financially literate. Where can they go to find more information to take a class?
Exactly. Well, there are a lot of places that they can go and find information. And the first step is making sure that wherever they go, that they go to a credible source. I know credit unions, we are known for having financial literacy at the core of our mission, which is people helping people. And we try to make sure that whenever we provide financial education out to the community, that it's something that they can trust and it's something they can use and understand. So that's definitely one source that they can go to. If they want to learn a little bit more, let's say, about their credit card, credit scores, and things of that nature, myfico.com has a website that they can go on and they can learn what are the different things that affect your credit. The length of your history, how long you've been paying on things, how your debt to credit ratio. And they'll learn some of that important terminology that's going to help them understand their credit and overcome some debt. When it comes to budgeting, they can go to nefe.com, nefe.com, and they have resources there on budgeting, on debt management, and things of that nature. I know one thing that will always help people as a bit of a cornerstone is just tracking where your money's going. And that's the main thing, that if you can understand what's coming in, what you're bringing in for your income, and what's going out for your expenses, that's going to let you know, okay, well, do I need to cut back on certain things? Do I need to stop going to Starbucks to get coffee every day? Or do I need to try and see, okay, well, I'm not making enough money. What's another way that I can improve my cash flow? If I have more skills in a different department, maybe picking up a different job or a side job can help me supplement some of that income. So there are a lot of resources. Financial institutions are there for them. And also there's a lot of committees out there that help different groups. For teachers, I serve on the Jumpstart Board of Virginia, and we have seminars for teachers to go to. So we're teaching them how to teach their students personal finance and economics. Same with the Virginia Credit Union League's Financial Literacy Committee. We host an event called the Real Money Experience, and it's a free event that teachers can go to and learn how to teach their students. Because when we're talking about our youth and when we're talking about adults, sometimes it's not just the adult needs to know for the adult, but the adult needs to know how to teach their child or how to teach their student. So we reach out to parents as well and try to provide resources for them.
Very good. And so if they wanted to find, I know you mentioned quite a few websites there. Is it
Yes,
all on
ma'am.
your Fort Lee Credit Union website if they go to that one place, or do you
Yes,
want to repeat the name of the websites they can go to? I just want to make sure people hear it twice.
oh, yeah, definitely. So they want to, they can check out fortleecu.org, and we have a resource tab that they can touch, and it gives them some calculators so they can go and see, maybe how to calculate your mortgage, how much of a car can you afford, and things of that nature. If you want to learn a little bit more about your credit score and how that affects how you're spending and how your credit score is measured, You can look at myfico.com. Also, creditcards.com would be a good resource, as well as annualcreditreport.com. Now, at annualcreditreport.com, that's where they can actually pull their credit reports and see, what's going on with their credit as far as who's lending them money. Are there any things that are outstanding, making sure that anything on the report, it should be on the report. And if not, they have steps for how you can dispute that as well. When it comes to budgeting, learning about debt management and things of that nature, they can go to nefi.com, I believe, .org, and then they would be able to go ahead and see all the different webinars and things that they have for trying to get out of debt, understanding credit, understanding retirement, and things of that nature.
Very good, Tia. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on the air today and informing our listeners about the importance of financial literacy. And I appreciate you coming on our show today. Thank you very
so much for having me.
Thank you. And it was great seeing you this week.
Yes, I love seeing you.
It was fun. So in a former life, I used to be a credit manager. And so I am amazed. I worked for Signet Bank Card, which became Capital One. And so I worked both as a customer service supervisor, but also a collection supervisor back in the day, many, many years ago. And it is amazing to me how, sometimes things happen. I mean, there are health situations that people encountered that are unexpected, but it is important to learn how to, I guess, to save for the future, to save for those emergencies so that you don't have to put money on your credit card, and in making sure that you make those regular. You really want to pay your balance off. That's something that we try to do at my house is to pay the balance off at the end of the month. Don't buy anything unless you can pay it off at the end of the month. We don't always do that, but most of the time we do. It's our general rule of thumb at the Chase household, and we're trying to teach our 4 children the same. So it's important. In fact, my husband is even teaching them with small amounts of money how to invest in the stock market online. So that's also fun. So anyway, well, Tia, thank you so much for coming on today, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
And that was Tia Grizzle, the Financial Literacy Coordinator with Fort Lee Credit Union. So you'll have to check that out. And I always try to have an educational minute on here because I know sometimes people get tired of politics as usual. But those of you who want politics as usual, you're going to get it too. We'll be right back with more Cut to the Chase.
The experienced team of attorneys at Carol Blanton Ferris and Associates are committed to providing you with quality legal services. Whether you need an estate plan, help administering an estate, or elder law assistance, you should give them a call today at 1-866-479-2900. Carol Blanton holds free monthly seminars to educate you on wills, trusts, and other documents like powers of attorney and medical directives. Visit their website at cbflaw.com to find a seminar near you. That's cbflaw.com or call them 1-866-479-2900. And tune in to Carol Blanton Ferris on Raising the Bar, Greater Richmond's premier law talk radio show on the second Wednesday of each month for more information on estate planning.
Lately, I've been losing sleep.
All right, what am I losing sleep about over this week? Well, I know we're all probably losing sleep over the Kavanaugh hearings, but we're also losing sleep over these P&E House Committee meetings regarding redistricting Virginia. You know, it just seems like there is an all-out attack on Republicans and conservatives, and I'm frankly getting sick of it. Yesterday's vote, which took place in the House, and I'm talking about the State House, not the U.S., the federal court panel has determined that 11 of our State House districts are unconstitutionally gerrymandered based on race. And let me just tell you, to begin with, whenever the lines were drawn, the House drew the lines, and it was approved or voted on with Democratic support, and it passed. I mean, you have to have the House and the Senate support it. You have to have the governor's support on this. And you even had, at the time, Governor Northam was a state senator. Even he supported the current way the House lines are drawn. There's something else that we need to remember here, is that whenever the legislature is told to draw these lines, they must take into account the Federal Voting Rights Act of 1965, which basically says this: you have to take race into consideration so that you don't discriminate. So I don't know that the mission that the task that they have been given is even possible. I don't even know that it's possible, because they are, and I just want to ask the judges that are on this federal court panel, are you familiar with the Federal Voting Rights Act of 1965? I mean, surely they are. So now we've given this deadline of October the 30th, where the House will come up with, hopefully the House comes up with some type of solution. You know, the Democrats put forth their map of how the line should be drawn, and so did the Republicans at this point. And if there's not some type of resolution here, the end game is going to be, and what happens is that the courts are going to end up drawing these lines. And that's what happened. That's why Congressman Randy Forbes lost his seat. This is exactly how the Democrats picked up more votes at the congressional level. And, you know, for me, it just seems like if we can't win fair and square, then we're going to go through the courts, and we're going to take those districts that you won away from you, those precincts that you won. We're going to take them away from you. And it's just kind of getting on my nerves lately, to be honest. So yesterday there was a vote. It was a party line vote by the House of Delegates Committee. It endorsed a new Republican plan while killing a bill proposed by Democrats in a battle for control of the closely divided chamber before elections next year. Now, let's just take a look at this for a minute. There were only 11 House districts affected, but the Democrats managed to come up with a plan that affected 23 different districts. 23. I don't know how that is bipartisan. I don't know how you can come up with a plan and not include Republicans in your plan. I have to give it up to Delegate Chris Jones and Speaker Cox, because they did reach out to the minority party, the Democrats. And in fact, Senator Spruill even said that he was supportive of the plan that the Republicans came up with. There's no resolution in sight. Spruill, who served 22 years in the House before moving to the Senate, said that he's working with Chris Jones on getting this done. It should be the General Assembly's job to fix this and not the courts. And I believe that. And that's why I introduced legislation this past session that basically said that we need to continue to allow the General Assembly to draw these lines. And let me tell you why. I do not like the independent commissions, because they are not transparent. Don't you want to know the political stripe of every person that's drawing those lines? If you have an independent commission, who do you think is going to serve on that commission? Probably people who are appointed by legislators. I don't believe there is such thing as an independent, neutral party that understands and knows how to draw redistricting lines. I don't think it exists. And I think it's a way to be non-transparent and introduce smoke and mirrors, which I do not support. I believe in transparent redistricting reforms. Now, I do believe the General Assembly should be given more criteria, and that outlines that in my bill. I don't think that you should allow politics to come into play whenever you are drawing these lines. There needs to be communities of interest. You need to have compact districts so you don't have these finger-like tendrils, which are reaching down into a legislator's district to draw them specifically in that district. And in fact, most of my legislators agreed with me on this. In fact, the bill that I introduced and was rolled into Senator Suderline's bill was passed the House and the Senate, and it was the governor that vetoed it. So that is maddening to me. The House Privileges and Elections Committee voted 12-10 to endorse this bill that Delegate Chris Jones, who's a Republican from Suffolk, introduced a day earlier with the promise of some Democratic support. Jones said it was an effort to break an impasse in finding a legislative solution after a federal court found that 11 House districts were racially gerrymandered. It really sounds like, Governor Northam said, I was hopeful that the General Assembly would be able to engage in a nonpartisan process to satisfy the court's requirement and to produce a constitutional remedy. But I'm left disappointed by today's party line vote to pass the majority's partisan map. I'm convinced now more than ever that a nonpartisan process, which in my opinion does not exist, is necessary to draw a map that is fair and meets the court's requirement. Jones said he'd reached out to Converse Fowler and 5 other Hampton Roads Democrats, including Delegate Steve Heretic of Portsmouth, Matthew James of Portsmouth, Jay Jones of Norfolk, Delegate Cliff Hayes of Chesapeake, and Cheryl Turpin of Virginia Beach. We're going to move on to the Senate confirmation hearings for Judge Kavanaugh before we run out of time. Have you been watching the circus that's been taking place as Dr. Christine Blasey Ford is extended an opportunity to share what I feel like was a fair opportunity for her to present and be heard, and in a sensitive way. I think that the U.S. Senate wanted to make sure that they did not have a repeat of other confirmations that have gone wrong, just like with Clarence Thomas. So they wanted the optics. They were very sensitive to the optics, and so they had an attorney that came in, and I don't remember her name right off, but she had worked with victims before and knew how to ask the questions in a sensitive way to put the victim at ease and ask the tough questions that the Republicans wanted her to ask. And as we find out, there are a couple things that we can be sure of. And that is that Dr. Christine Blasey Ford says that she's 100% sure that Judge Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her when they were in high school. And then later she goes on to say, I believed he was going to rape me. Not that he did, but she believed that he was going to. What does he say? He says he's 100% certain that he did not do such a thing. And so we go back and forth, hours and hours of testimonies, and basically we hear from Dr. Ford and Judge Kavanaugh. Hours and hours. And our takeaway is basically this. And it depends on which which side of the aisle you're on, to be honest with you, because I'm turning on the networks just to get a feel, and it's exactly what I thought. You've got the Democrats who are asking Judge Kavanaugh to call for an FBI investigation into these new claims. And you have the Republicans who are saying, look, it's been 35 plus years. He's already been through 4 and 5 FBI investigations over the course of his career and even through this process. But the question is, what about the new claims? And so I don't generally agree with Senator Flake, but I actually did today. And here's why. We must uphold the rule of law. We must. We absolutely have to uphold the rule of law. But now we're being tried in the media, and Republicans want to show you that they are sensitive to. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Wow, I can't believe it's already time for the final wrap-up of Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase. And just a couple final comments. You know, it's so important that whenever we are watching these hearings, it's important to respect the rule of law. And I understand there is a lot of emotion that takes place. I have gone with victims of sexual and domestic violence. I have gone with them to file police reports because it was so painful for them that they couldn't go by themselves, and I went with them. I've sat there with victims as the investigators ask questions. And these are really tough and personal questions. I have gone with a victim to the magistrate's office to file a restraining order. I understand. I have friends who are victims. I personally have been a victim. I understand. But whenever we put emotion ahead of the rule of law, we are in a dangerous place as a country. In Virginia, we have a statute of limitations where if there is a rape that is committed, you have a year to file a police report. And then after the year, time is up. And that was unfortunately what one of my victims heard in her particular situation. And, it is difficult for victims to remember all of the details. And a lot of times, only those details that they remember are whenever they're on heightened alert and they're having the cortisol and the stress. It's at that point the recorder of their mind picks up and they start recording what's going on. I feel like the Republican Senate handled this in a way that they will still be able to confirm their judge before the elections while letting off some of the steam that the Democrats were trying to throw in the path here of saying there needs to be an FBI investigation of these new allegations. I support that decision. And unfortunately, we are not only as elected officials, we are tried not only by the rule of law, but we're tried in the media by public opinion. And with social media, we live in a transparent society. We live in a glass bowl. Everybody sees what's going on. And so I almost, this is the first year in Virginia's history that you are able to watch us in committee meeting. And I think it's important that legislators explain to the public what's going on. What just happened with that vote? Why did that bill go down? What does it mean to lay a bill on the table or to gently pass it by? We need to be instructive and let you all know what's going on, what's being said, so that you can participate in the process and understand what's going on. I'm concerned for my 3 boys being falsely accused. I thought you were considered innocent until proven guilty. I get it. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the land, and we want to make sure we have good, qualified candidates who have good reputations and good character. But we, as a society, cannot expect people to be perfect. And that's where we are. We're so quick to judge and to confront. God help us. We'll be back with more Cut to the Chase next Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. Until then, I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday.